Buenos dias. I'm sorry I'm not able to be with you today. I'm still not feeling well. I'm headed to the doctor today to see if I have stomach flu or just anything more than that. My fiance Amanda actually has come down with pertussis, and so that might be part of what's going on. I'm not sure. So I'm hoping to be back tomorrow. In the meantime, I wanted to create this short video to hopefully help some of you who might be confused as to what's going on. Very briefly, what we've been talking about are what are called direct object pronouns. These are lo, la, los, and las. They are simply the ways to say it, them, or sometimes him or her in Spanish. We use them typically when responding to questions that ask what or to, or not to whom, but just whom. Like, um, are you eating an apple? Yes, I'm eating it. Are you inviting Paul to the party? Yes, I'm inviting him. We just use them often in English without thinking. So I wanted to very quickly go through some of the activities I've asked you to do over the last few days to kind of help you make sure you're on the right track if you've not been understanding, and also help you get ready for the quiz over this stuff, which you're going to have to do exactly what I just did in English. I'll have 10 questions written out. They will all ask, do you do something? And you'll have to respond yes or no, and then you'll have to include one of the words, lo, la, los, or las. So to begin with, we talked about whether people needed certain things when they're in the classroom or on vacation. You see the things indicated over here. You see who the people are here, and then there's one column for classroom and one column for vacations. So I've written up here at the top, if you can see, let's get rid of this, the forms of to need, and then the 4 words you need to include. So for example, for the number 2, since number 1's already done, it's asking notebooks. Would we need notebooks in class? And the answer is probably yes. So since it's notebooks, los cuadernos, we're going to use los. The way I chose that is that's masculine and plural. Basically, I just look at that first word to tell me that. And the only thing I have to keep in mind is if it's L, like in number 5, it changes to lo. So that's the first thing. And then I need to choose the form of necesitar that I need. Since it's nosotros, which means we, the one I need is necesitamos. So all I have to put is los necesitamos. Over here, it says you. On vacation, would you need notebooks? Probably not. So you're going to start with no. Since you're still talking about los cuadernos, you would still use los. And then now you're not talking about we, but you're talking about you. So since it's tú, you'd use the ending es. Let's skip to number 5, since that's the one I just mentioned. It's asking, do you need sun? El sol means sun. So when you're in class, well, maybe it would be nice, but you probably don't absolutely need it. So you're going to start with no. Then, since it's el sol, I told you just look at that first word, the L word. Now, usually you just take that word and put it over here, but when it's L, it just has to change to lo. Now, the subject again is tú, so it's going to be the same one we used over here, necesitas. And then that's all you need. Over here, it's talking about Enrique. So does he need sun when he's on vacation? Well, he probably does. It would be a pretty crappy vacation if he didn't have sun. So we won't need to put no. We're again talking about sun, which starts with L, but we change that to lo. We want it to mean it. And then since it says Enrique, that's the same as saying he, or necesita. One other example before moving on here. Let's go to one you might not have known. I think I translated most of them, but number 9 you might not have known what it meant. It actually means a good mood. So in class, do I need a good mood? Well, from a teacher's perspective, I would say yes. You could disagree, I suppose. So I'm not going to put no. Since it's talking about el buen humor, again, we look at that very first word. It's el. Now, normally I would just put el, but that's one that we have to change. Looking at our chart, it changes to lo. And then it says yo, which means I, so the ending we would need is just o. Yo lo necesito. I need it. On vacation, does Maria need a good mood? Probably so. So again, we don't need to put no. We start instead with lo. We're still talking about her good mood. And then necesita. So I know I haven't gone through all of them, and necesita just because it's she, by the way. But that should give you kind of an idea of how to go about doing this. If that still doesn't make sense, just skip over that. It's not super important. It was just designed to give you practice choosing the right endings for the people, something we've already talked about, and also choosing lo, la, los, las based on these words over here, and that basically was just looking at the first word. Going on to the next activity. Oops, I don't have it in this file. I think I saved it in a different file here. This was a more challenging activity, and I don't want to spend a lot of time on it. I gave you several examples. All you were doing here was translating this and then making sure to use lo, la, los, or las in your translation. So again, you had to think about the verb endings that you needed and then put in lo, la, los, or las. I've given you some examples. I took a brief look at some of the people who've already turned this in, and it looked like the people who turned it in did a fine job. So there are people who are understanding this. If you're one of those people that didn't quite get how to do this at this point, don't worry about it. It's not too important for the quiz, and it's probably not worth our time to just go through it. So I'm going to skip over that. This one, however, is more important for the quiz and shouldn't have been that hard, I hope. All you had to do was rewrite these sentences and take out the part I underlined and put in lo, la, los, or las. So basically, you just keep the words that I kept, so Alicia lleva, and then you're taking out el vestido negro. Again, you choose lo, la, los, or las to replace it. And so, as we talked about, it would be a lo. Now, the only other thing you had to think about here was where to put the lo. If you don't have one of these four endings, AR, ER, IR, ando, and I guess there are five, or endo, you cannot put it on the end like we just did. Instead, you have to put it before the verb, and the verb is just the action word. In this case, it's wearing. Alicia lleva. Lleva is that wearing part. So we say Alicia lo lleva. We just put it before. For number two, we do see a word in the sentence that has one of those endings I just mentioned, AR. So when you're typing it out, you'll see that. Usted acaba de comprar. We keep all that. We're taking out el collar azul. Since we have a word that ends with AR, we can just put it right on the end. That's all one word. We could also put it in front here, but if you have one of these endings, that's probably easiest just to think about putting it on the end. Number three would be a similar thing. We type the words that we're keeping, vamos a vender. We're taking out el reloj, and then we have to put in lo, la, los, or las. Since it's el reloj, masculine, singular, we use lo. Vender ends with er, we can put it right in the end. So those are some examples of how to go about that. Now the best practice, the one I want to spend a little more time on, is number four. This is exactly, basically what you'll have to do for the quiz. Just looking at the questions, they all have to do with you. They're asking if you do something. And so all these are also yes or no questions. So you're going to start all of them with yes or no. The hard part perhaps is figuring out what the questions are asking, and then maybe figuring out how to use lo, la, los, or las. So number one's asking, do you invite your friends when you have a party? Well, the answer is probably yes. So you'd say sí, and then you're changing all these to I form. So for the most part, you're just looking at that verb, which is going to be the first word, and adding o. So it's sí invito. Now that's not quite a complete thought. That would get you 2 out of the 3 points on the quiz. But to get to the third point, you'd have to put in lo, la, los, or las. So you're taking out sus amigos. So I'm just going to cross this whole part. Your friends. That whole thing is coming out, just like we did in the previous activity. So you're saying, yes, I invite them. Now I've crossed it out, so you might not be able to see it, but if you look at amigos, that ends with os. That tells you it's masculine plural. So we use los. And notice how I put it before, since we didn't have one of those endings I just talked about. Just to do a couple more examples here. Number two is asking, do you visit your grandparents a lot? So I don't visit my grandparents a lot, so I'm going to say no. I can just put one no, or I can put two. If I put two, what I'm saying is no, I don't. If I just put one, it's saying I don't. Again, I'm talking about myself, so I just changed the ending on that very first word to o. And then I have to add in lo, la, los, or las. So I look at the rest of the sentence. In this case, it's grandparents and then often. So what I want to say is no, I don't visit them. Now again, the word I need for them is los. And since I don't have any word that ends with AR, ER, or IR, I just put it before the verb, the action word, visiting. One other example here is number 3. Are you going to buy the bike? So I'll say yes, I'm going to buy it. Now, I just said that these are all asking about you, which is true. Now, this one, if you followed the pattern that we did in number 1 and 2, you'd end up with vou, and that's not correct. This is what we call an irregular verb, and there are a few of them, and you'll see them, like the next one, le gusta, is also irregular. We don't say vou, we say voy. Si voy a comprar, yes, I'm going to buy, and now we're taking out the bike, la bicicleta. Since it's la bicicleta, we would use la. Now the question is, where do we put that la? Since we have a word that ends with AR, we probably can just put it right on the end. C, voy a comprar. So we'll go through some of these other ones if you have questions, but hopefully that kind of gets you on the right track. We'll work more with this later this week as we prepare for the quiz. We have to do exactly the same thing. They'll all be yes or no questions asking if you do something. You'll answer them starting with yes or no, change it to the I form, and then put in lo, la, los, or las. So the two things I'm asking you to do for the rest of the class today are first, go through this matching activity. Basically, it's usually the verbs I'm going to use to write the questions on the quiz. Kind of like the last quiz we took where I gave you the possible verbs in advance. It's the same thing here. Hopefully you're starting to kind of learn some of these verbs and remember them. If not, that's okay. That's why we're doing this. Match up these verbs. Second, I'd like you to write 5 questions in Spanish. Again, they don't have to be complicated questions. You have some examples here that we started going through. Please don't copy my questions, but you can use them for examples. They're all yes or no questions. They all ask if you do something, and they all can be responded to using lo, la, los, or las. So it's kind of tricky. I'm only asking you to write 5, but you should be able to come up with 5 things. Like just thinking at the top of my head, like, do you need something? Do you paint something? Do you practice a certain sport? Do you play a certain instrument? Do you read the book? Do you talk Spanish? I mean, things like that. I can just think of a lot of them coming off right off the top of my head, so it shouldn't be too hard to do that. Once you get those, go to Edmodo, turn them in using the turn in button, and then if you have more time, you can go to Wordplay. There's an exercise on here. It's lesson 35, and they're a little out of order, as you can see. It says verbs for the quiz. You can just play that game. Now I logged out, I timed out. That's what you can do, and if you spend 15 minutes before we take the quiz, which I'm not sure if it'll be Friday or next week sometime, I'll give you 2 extra credit points. So hopefully that helped explain a little bit what we've been doing the last few days. I hope to be back with you tomorrow, and hopefully you can get something accomplished today in class. Hasta luego.